and we try to bring people together at the very local level and try to support them with small grants and training.
My name is Ismail Makouda. I'm the General Manager at the Lancashire Council of Mosques, and my interest in interfaith is that I sit on various interfaith bodies within Lancashire, and I'm a seminary graduate, and aside from that I also studied previously at a Roman Catholic primary school and high school, so I have an interest in Christian theology.
All right.
I'm Liz Jewett, the United Reformed Church minister in Burnley and Nelson and soon to be Accrington.
As well.
As well. Wow. To the world.
Great.
My name is Sumaya Kubariwala, and I'm the project worker for the Preston Faith Forum. And I thought something like this workshop would help me to give something back to my life.
Great. Now we are all more or less on leadership level. So
you told us about yourself.
Well,
you know, you're from Syria.
Exactly. I'm going to tell you about myself, which is part of my my presentation or my workshop, because living in Syria was a lot of interfaith life by living, not by profession. So first of all,
It's a good map of Syria.
so what is this?
Mediterranean Sea.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And here,
Turkey,
Turkey. And here,
Iraq,
Iraq. Here, Jordan. Here, Lebanon. And here, Israel and Palestine.
Yeah.
So I was in DC, Washington DC, and I said, I had a big audience, and I said, what is this? And the senator of DC, he said, Afghanistan. And I said, if that is Afghanistan, what is this? He said, China. So the Americans are not very good in geography. So I learned that firsthand. So this is, and this is of course Syria, and I come from here, and a city called Latakia, which is the main port of Syria, and there is another port in Syria called Tartus, which is different than Tarsus, where St. Paul comes from, which is in Turkey. And Latakia, I'm proud to tell you that Latakia, the ancient name of Latakia is Ugarit. Have you heard the word Ugarit? Ugarit? No.
No.
So, what is so special about Ugarit? It is very special place because it gave the world the first alphabet. The first alphabet in history was born in Latakia, in Ugarit. And you write, let me, for example, this is a letter. What do you call this in English? No, the alphabet. Cuneiform. Cuneiform. In Arabic, we don't call it cuneiform. This shape is an old shape of a nail. Because of that, in Arabic, we call it the nail language, the language of the nails. Because all the letters in the cuneiform alphabet are or consist of nails put in different positions. It's very clever. And it's the first alphabet which is not pictorial. You know what the word pictorial is? They are not pictures. Like which language? The Egyptian, the hieroglyphic. The hieroglyphic is pictorial language. You see a picture and you know what it symbolizes. But this is an abstract letters, like writing a language. And in Ugarit, they discovered a whole library. And they discovered that the librarian was quite clever. He put all the alphabet on one tablet to teach his students. It was all carved on tablets. So, and this tablet was preserved. And if you go to the National Museum of Damascus, you see this tablet. And if you look at it quite closely, it has something magical about it. You think, oh, it's the first alphabet in the world in front of you. It's amazing. In the next box, you see a statue of a blue man, that big, sitting on a chair in a very majestic way. And this little statue is El, the god we talked about. So you look at it and you see, this is amazing. The first alphabet with the origin of the whole monotheistic emergence of the understanding of God. It's in one single museum. It's a blue, fascinating picture of a statue of a person sitting on a chair. And Syria was not like this before. What do you know? Do you have any idea when it became like this?
After the First World War, huh?
Yes.
They were all Ottomans before.
Yes. After the Ottoman Empire, it was divided. Who divided it?
French and
The British and the French in what's so-called the Sykes-Picot Agreement. The Sykes-Picot Agreement is when Monsieur Picot and Mr. Sykes sat in London over high tea and divided the area. They didn't have time to divide it properly and study the towns and the villages. What did they do? They got a ruler, and most of the borders in the Middle East are straight lines. If you look how Jordan was carved in the map, how Iraq was carved, how Syria, and all is straight lines. They didn't have time. I mean, they don't waste time, the French and the British. They really get to work. And they divided the whole area. So the whole area was called Bilad al-Sham. It's Sham countries. Sham is a word called for the whole area, which we call the Levant in English. Levant is Sham. And now in Arabic, we say we are going to Sham. It means in Syria, we're going to Damascus, which is in the south. So if you say in Syria, I'm going to Sham, it means you are specifically going to Damascus. If you are in Egypt and you say, I'm going to Sham, it means you're going to Syria. So because the terms were interchangeable. And before that, the area was divided not like this, but before even Christ, was divided into ancient kingdoms. So, who lived here? The coast. No? Mm-mm. The Canaanites were in the south.
Samaritans?
Mm-mm. The Samaritans are Jews who have, in the exile time, married non-Jews. So the Jews looked at the Samaritans as being unpure. And that was the cause of enmity between the Samaritans and the Jews. But here at the coast were the sailors called Phoenicians. The Phoenicians. And every time you see the International Security Council in the UN, you remember this beautiful hall they have? In the back of that, I was there, and I asked the guide, I said, what is this beautiful painting behind where the people sit? He said, this is the legend or the myth of the phoenix. And I said, what is the origin of the phoenix? He said, I don't know. I said, it's a Syrian myth. It's from the Phoenicians. The phoenix. Hello? I mean, you know, it's not rocket science. The phoenix comes from the Phoenicians. And this legend of the bird rising from the ashes, everybody knows the myth, but nobody knows the origin of it. Is exactly when we say El and Elohim and Allah, we don't know the origin of it. Because of that, I want to say that the area was divided into kingdoms, like the Phoenicians. In Iraq, who dwelt in Iraq?
Babylonian.
The Babylonians. And here, in the center Syria and up north on the Euphrates,
Assyrian.
the Assyrians. So, and in the south were the Canaanites, and you go south, the Pharaohs, the ancient Egyptians. So these kingdoms interacted with each other. We have even treaties written in cuneiforms, peace treaties, economical treaties. We have cultural exchange. Between here is the second largest city in Syria, which is Aleppo. I'm sure you heard the word Aleppo. Aleppo is at the border of Turkey, but from the north. Latakia is at the border of Turkey from the Mediterranean side. The English and the British and the French cut this area and gave it to Turkey as a reward, because Turkey did not fight pro-Germany in the Second World War. So the reward was to give Turkey part of Syria as if they owned the place. Anyway, so in this part there is a very important city, Christian city, which played a huge role in the Christian history. What city is it? Antioch. Antioch. And my mother was born in Antioch. And she and her family were pushed down to Latakia. But Antioch was Syria before the Second World War. So, and the whole area was given to Turkey. So it wasn't like this. It was different kingdoms interacting with each other. There was nothing called Lebanon. In the Bible, Lebanon, what is Lebanon? Is the cedars of Lebanon. You all heard of the cedars of Lebanon and the mountains of Lebanon. Where Jordan, what is Jordan? The river. The river Jordan and the valley. So the British carved Jordan and gave it to a family. It's called the Hashemite kingdom. Is it as if we say the United Kingdom of Windsor? Everybody laughs at that, but that's what happened. It's the Hashemite kingdom of Jordan and the Saudi Arabia, the kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Saudi is one family. The whole country was given to one family, which is the Al Saud. So what does that lead us to? It leads us to, from the ancient time, we have three dimensions to life. There was religion, very important factor even till today. In the Middle East, we are by DNA, by nature, we are religious. Because of that, politicians find it heaven to manipulate religion in the Middle East in order to put some ideologies and political agendas using religion or abusing religion, both, for their own sake and for their own agenda. Because the people are vulnerable when it comes to religion. And that is not new. That goes back to hundreds, if not thousands of years. We have the first epic which talks about religion in an unprecedented way. I don't know if you have heard of the Epic of Gilgamesh. You must read it if you haven't read it. You must read it. You can't pass by life without reading the Epic of Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh is a story from thousands of years when human beings wandered and asked the big question, why am I here? What is the purpose of my existence? That was the question that Gilgamesh faced and left the kingdom to embark on a journey to find the purpose of his life and the eternity. The eternal life was also an obsession of the people of the Middle East. So please read it because it is fascinating. And of course, in the Epic of Gilgamesh, we have the first mention of the flood and Noah. But Noah was not called Noah in the Epic of Gilgamesh. It was called Utnapishtim. The Syrian name of Noah was Utnapishtim. So religion is very much there, immersed, rooted in the culture. That is the second element which we need to understand in order to embark on any dialogue or engage in any dialogue. We must look at the religion, we must look at the culture, and the third subject, which we have no escape from, is economy, money. Because religion, peace, war, culture, all that can be manipulated in order to make business out of it. So my challenge to us all this afternoon is to try to understand dialogue from synoptically. You know what synoptically means? We have the synoptic gospels, we say. Mark, Luke, and Matthew, we call them the synoptic gospels. Why do we call them the synoptic gospels? Ministers?
It's a similar story.
Similar. The similarities in the three narrations of the gospel comes from looking. Synoptic means looking through the same angle, from a similar angle. Synoptic, optic, and syn in Greek, from the same angle. So if we want to look to dialogue, we can't understand dialogue without taking these three huge elements into consideration. First of all, we are all, we are the children of our culture. I remember I was giving a workshop for the army in London. And one officer, very bright officer, and the whole group was going to the Middle East. So they wanted me to talk about the Middle East. And I was talking about the importance of culture. And he said, why are you emphasizing the culture? Why is it so important? Why should I be proud of my culture? I said, what is your culture? He said, I'm English. As if, so what? I said, tell me something. If we take the culture, the English culture, your culture, if we take it from you, away, His name was James. I said, James, who is James? Tell me about you without your culture. And he started, I said, look at yourself in the mirror. How you dress, how you speak, what you eat, your sense of humor, the television programs you like, every little details of your life has something to do with culture, whether your culture or somebody else's culture influencing you. Because of that, we have no existence. We do not exist without culture. What is culture? How do you define culture?
It's a collective experience and tradition of arts, knowledge, music, behavior, community affairs. It's a whole big mix of things.
The culture is not all those who you counted. In my opinion, the culture is what you said first. It's the experience, the collective experience.
Mm-hmm.
It is the interaction.
Biologically, a culture is something in which you grow.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So you interact with a group of people in a certain time, in a certain area, and what you counted are the fruits of this experience.
Okay. Yeah.
The elements, the offspring of such experience.
Mm-hmm.
Like religion, like language, like history, like music, art, you name it. All these expressions are consequences to our collective experiences. So this collective experiences is what we call culture. And one of the collective experiences that bring culture into more fruition is religion. Actually, religion is an element of culture. And economy is also an element of culture. How we treat each other, how we deal with each other. So what we're talking about, we're talking a cultural experience. Even God is culture. I don't want to go into theology, but there is in the Christian theology what I call, and nobody else calls, the culture of God. Even God in the Christian theology has culture. What is the culture of God? Ministers and priests. What is the culture of God?
It's the understanding of God of a particular group of people, the common.
Yeah. According to the Christian theology, what is the culture of God? If we are talking about the culture as a collective experience,
Yeah.
people living together, according to the Christian theology, what is God?
Should be creative, loving, compassionate.
Yes. How do we know that? Because if we believe as Christians that God is Trinity, then God collectively in himself has a culture that we cannot access, which is the culture of love. Because St. John says God is love. God is not only loving, God is not only lovely, God is not only lovable, God is love. Linguistically speaking, this is a contradiction. Nobody can say, I am justice. You don't say that. You say, I'm just. But St. John purposely used to describe God by another noun. God is not loving, God is love. It means love and God are the same thing, interchangeable. And that's what I call in the Christian theology, the culture of God, the culture of the Trinity, the culture of love. So this is my own experience of dialogue. Dialogue starts with God. God teaches us. In Islam, God dialogues with humanity through what?
Through the prophet and the angel. The medium is the angel.
Yes. And the prophet is a medium.
Yes.
But he dialogues with the people through mainly, number one,
Quran.
the Quran.
Okay. Yeah.
The Quran is the ultimate expression of God in dialogue with humanity, because the Quran works to organize and the life of human beings in the very details, puts a roadmap to his obedience and worship and how to live. So the ultimate expression of God's dialogue with humanity was the Quran. And number two,
Prophet.
yes, the prophet. But after the prophet, what hadith. So in Islam, in the dialogue we must understand is, first of all, the Quran, and second is al-hadith. God talks to people ultimately through these two resources. First, the Quran, and second, hadith. They are not equal. There is hierarchy here. Right? So, what do we say in Christianity? What is equal to the Quran? Christ, not the Bible. Christ is not the Bible. Because according to Christianity, God spoke to humanity through becoming one of them. The incarnation, Christmas, is the ultimate dialogue of God with humanity. So, because the incarnation is not recognized by Islam, we are looked at correctly from the Islamic perspective that we are the people of the book. Because we have what? The Bible. So, the Bible is equal to the Quran from what? Which perspective? From a Muslim perspective. The Quran is equal to Jesus Christ from a Christian perspective. According to Christianity, we are not the people of the book. We are the people of the person. Why we are the people of the person? Because of Easter. Because the person is still alive after the resurrection. Because of that, Christ is still alive as much as the Quran is still alive. Right? So these basics pave the way for our understanding of each other and of dialogue, so that we don't, it's like dancing. If you don't dance, you step over the toes of your partner all the way. But if you know how to dance, you don't step over the toes of your partner. You know the music, and you know the steps, and you know how to maneuver, even if the hall is full of couples. Because you know the map, how the steps work. So I'm not here to tell you what the conditions of the dialogue and how to do dialogue. Each culture, each community has its own rules. But I'm saying I'm here to challenge you to go to the basics, to go to the roadmap that you know how to dance together. So that, for example, basics, we need to understand how Islam revere Christ. How does it revere? How does it look at Christ?
As a prophet.
As a prophet. But very important, although we hear a lot about that concept, that Islam looks at considers Christ as a prophet, we need to understand one fact that I never hear. unless we are talking so specifically. Islam looks and studies and understands Christ through the eyes of Mary. Because Mary is the only female that her name is mentioned in the Quran, right? And not only that, there is a whole chapter in the Quran called Surah Maryam. And Surah Maryam is very important to understand how Islam looks and understands Christianity. When we come to Christianity, what helps us to understand Islam? Very little. Because chronologically, Islam came after Christianity. So we have no guidelines how to look, how understand Islam. So of course, the Westerners, excuse me, I'm here not to be politically correct. Because of that, I will name things in their names. The Western church is so arrogant. They think they know everything. We have lived with Islam only from the beginning. Just a little bit. And the West would like to think they can teach us how to deal with Muslims. I mean, it's sometimes in some interfaith, high-level interfaith meetings, it's mind-boggling, the arrogance of the West. They think they know everything. And we have lived with Islam just from the beginning only. The Prophet himself was going between Mecca and where? Damascus. He was educated by the monks on that road. And still the British think Christ was born under Big Ben. Anyway, so what we need to understand is Mary is an important figure in Islam. It's probably equal to the importance, not literally, but equal to how the Catholic Church looks at Mary. We Protestants, we have a little bit of a cringe that the Roman Catholic Church exaggerates the role of Mary. But if you look at Islam, Islam understands a lot of Jesus Christ through the chapter of Maryam, Surah Maryam. I even say, we do not understand the incarnation more or different than what Surah Maryam, the chapter of Maryam, suggests, but we put it in a different way. So Surah Maryam says, وَنَفَخْنَا فِيهَا مِنْ رُوحِنَا. It means we blew, God is saying, we blew in Mary from our spirit. Come on. What are we talking here about? Isn't that the Annunciation? What is it then? Isn't that the Annunciation? Isn't that the Holy Spirit? What are we talking about? We go further to say, well, in this case, symbolically speaking, the child is the Son of God because وَنَفَخْنَا فِيهَا مِنْ رُوحِنَا. We take it a completely different direction, but the origin of that is one. What does it mean when we say, and the archangel said to Mary, and the Spirit of God will overshadow you? And in the Quran says, and we blew in her. Well, say whatever you like poetically. It's poetry. Nobody heard what the angel said. So what I'm saying is, I'm not here to say we, as the professor rightly said so, we after all, we are the same. No. We are not the same. But what I'm saying is, there are points, points of reference that we can ease the dialogue. How we understand ourselves. This is not a simple issue. This is a major issue. So in Christianity, because Islam came after Christianity, don't ask a Christian out of courtesy to believe that the Quran came from Allah, from God, from heaven. Don't ask any Christian to believe that, because otherwise you are stretching it too much. I was sitting in a live interview at Easter. Live interview in a Muslim channel. And the interviewer was interviewing me and an imam, a Sayyid, an imam. And he said, "Father, I don't understand." Live. He said, "I don't understand. We all believe that the Quran is the book of God, and why don't we get united more?" And I smiled, and the imam noticed my smile, and he intervened, and he said to the young man, he's about 30, 31, and he said, "Excuse me, Father Nadim does not believe that the Quran comes from Allah or from heaven, because if he does, he would be a Muslim."
Yes, exactly.
And then the penny drops for the young man, and he said, "Oh, of course. Oh, well, yeah, sorry." I said, don't worry. But we assume things about each other without checking even. He assumed that we say monotheistic religions, we are all in Arabic ad-diyanat as-samawiyya, the three heavenly religions in Arabic. So then you believe, of course, as a Christian, that the Quran came from heaven. So why can't we get closer? So I said, "Well, shall I say also that you believe that Christ was crucified?" So of course he got red, because he doesn't believe. I said, "Don't be embarrassed. I know you don't believe that." I mean, there are things we should not assume by building a common ground. So
Just
yes.
to interrupt you, sorry. You've talked a lot about dialogue there, but you've only talked about one part of it, one direction, if you like, from God to man.
What about
the other half? Is there a difference there between
No.
the way that Christians and Muslims perceive the other half of the dialogue?
Yes, there is. And also, how we express our part, we take our side, and we play our little role in this dialogue from all three dimensions. Culture is how we interact with each other. There is a saying in Arabic which I don't like, but it's so widely spread. Religion is for God, and the homeland is for everybody. I don't like it. It's so cliche. Everybody uses it. الدين لله والوطن للجميع. So religion is with God, and my homeland is for all. Don't mix the two. I'm sorry. This is rubbish. Because if religion is not how I interact through also my faith, I interact with the people. Am I schizophrenic or what? So when I talk to you, I'm not Christian. When I go to pray, I'm Christian. What does that mean?
Yeah.
That's nonsense. We should this is our dialogue. This is our part of the contract. This is our part of the conversation. How we express our conversation in our worship. الدين لا. What does the Prophet say? الدين, one word, المعاملة. Religion is how you practice, how you deal with your neighbor. 2 words he said. I wish everybody, not only Muslims, listens to that. Ad-deenul mu'amala. Religion is, not looks like, is. How you deal with your neighbor. If you deal badly with your neighbor, your religion is wrong. Simply. It's equal to what Jesus said. What?
Love thy neighbour.
Yeah. As yourself. We're not creating the wheel again. It's there. This is our own bit to give to God. And I will shut up, but just one thing is this. Usually this is the problem. When politics mixes with religion in a poisonous way, it is this. When ideologies abuse religion in order to obtain very important words. Everybody wants power. Look at what is happening in the Middle East, especially in Syria. Everything is about power. And who is paying who? Because who pays sets the tone. And because of that, the abuse of any of that, especially by politics, is lethal for the community. This is what the depth we should go with our communities, so that when we dialogue, I could sit here and pontificate and say, if you are planning for a dialogue, first of all you have to know what you're dialoguing about. Second of all, get the logistics right. Third, this is all, you know it. When you organize an event, you organize an event. But more importantly, are we rooted? Are we, what I say, soaked in the theology of, or the philosophy, or the thinking of dialogue, more than just its event organizing? Shut up, Nadim. Fine. Thank you. Your bit. Now.
I'm just thinking, because we're going into new areas and I'm just dealing with a particular individual at the moment. So I can't really refer which community or that is. It could be a church, a mosque, could be any community. But there's a strong sense of victimhood, and so strong that victimhood. Mm-hmm. So strong that any slightest thing that could hint that you question their victimhood would immediately discount you as somebody,
as an enemy.
You would immediately be an enemy. You would not be able to get inroads. And if you want to get that group to be involved with everybody else, you actually have to not even go there. And so it's on my mind. And when I look at these things, there's culture, there's a history within that particular religious community that have suffered in the past, that are very, very anxious of how other communities perceive it. Anything that is, and it's quite challenging when that combines with somebody who feels deeply passionate or wounded in some shape or form.
Or hurt.
It's not but the economic, I sometimes find, comes in as well.
Of course,
but
what you're talking about, what you're dealing with, is here.
It's strongly cultural in that sense, yes.
And also, the way in is always to affirm.
Yes.
To affirm what, you know, if I am vulnerable and I feel victimized and I feel hurt, the first thing I want you to do is to acknowledge my pain. If you do not acknowledge my pain, whatever you say, I will feel like this. And I will look from time to time. No, once you acknowledge my pain and my suffering, you disarm me. And then I start to talk and I start to interact, because what you have done is you invited me to your space. But as long as you are ignoring my suffering, don't expect me to react. Don't expect me even to listen.
Yeah.
So this is very important when we initiate a dialogue, to listen to the cultural nuances that not always obvious. This victimization is not always obvious. You sense it from how people interact, how people react to you. You sense it, you feel it. Then you have to acknowledge it. I'll give you an example. We were interviewed two Syrians, me and another person who was secular. I mean, a lay, not a clergy, and not a practicing Muslim, just a Syrian. And he thought he would be nice to me, and he started talking, emphasizing the plight and the suffering of Christians. All right, to ease me in the dialogue.
Yeah.
And the first sentence I said in my interview, I said, before I say anything about Christians in Syria, I want to emphasize one thing. I want to emphasize that the suffering of Christians in Syria is not in any way, in any form or in any shape, a hair less than the suffering of any Syrian. And then I got the attention, because everybody expected me what? To defend my stand as a Christian, and I will talk about Christian. And I said, I will talk about the suffering of Christians only because I'm a priest and I'm asked to talk and highlight the suffering of Christians, not to say that the suffering of Christians in Syria is in any way greater or more important than the suffering of anyone in Syria, of any Syrian. This acknowledgement frees your way into the dialogue.
I did. This is maybe something interesting. We had a youth young leaders training session, and a really beautiful, intimate conversation. And something came up that a Christian girl who was from Iranian American background but grew up in Germany. So just to give you a mix there, living in this country, had somebody doing the plumbing for her, and this was a Muslim gentleman who came in. And she said, she reached out to shake hands. And we had a very long, very good conversation about why wouldn't he shake my hand? And then we had Muslim gentlemen who were part of the group and discussing it. And I thought that was a very interesting discussion. And what it highlighted to me was this, that we are a country, Britain or Germany, that is still very new to this. Because I believe that in this part of the world, the Muslim community is less than 100 years old, maybe 50 or 60 years old, how long, maybe, huh? And so it's quite interesting, because the handshake, that for one faith is out of respect, you don't want to insult, you don't shake the hand of a lady. For the other one, it's a non-sexual, very important form of greeting, of showing how you trust the other person at the very foundation of a place all across Europe. It was very fascinating to listen to that conversation, and I just wondered, what has been, with that form of greeting, what has been the experience in places like Syria, where the religions have shared similar cultural backgrounds, but they're two different religions? Has there been any changes over how that even to that minute level, that sort of interaction, or is it just so similar already? Because my wife is from Iraq and she wouldn't have really embraced anybody. This was new to her. She would have been more formal towards men. I just wonder whether there's any lessons that we can learn, because Europe, it's new. We are getting this new pot of cultures together, where Syria has been a place that had this for, as you said, thousands of years.
In Syria, things changed, have changed dramatically. A shake hand was never, ever an issue. Embrace is different. You are going a step further and more intimate. But let's talk about the handshake. The handshake, as I grew up, I never ever met a Syrian lady, Muslim, who wouldn't shake hands. That was not in our dictionary, not in our lifestyle, in any way. Not in Lebanon. I've never ever come across a Muslim lady who would not shake hands, except in the last 10 to 15 years. Things changed. Some strand of Islam came to Syria, which was absolutely foreign. Not part of our culture, not part of our existence, not part of how we live together, which spoiled the relationship between not only Christian Muslim, but Muslims and other minorities in the country. And that strand has a lot to do with what I said, the true enemy of all this, which is politics. Suddenly, Muslim ladies stop shaking hands in Syria. Don't ask me why. Suddenly, Islam taught that shaking hand is wrong. And fatwas were issued and all kinds of things. But in Syria and Lebanon, Jordan, Palestine, I mean, the map I drew, this came totally out of the blue, from outside the area.
Interesting.
Because the handshake was always considered a form of greeting. I can't judge beyond that. If you go to Afghanistan or Pakistan or India, I can't judge. I'm talking about the Middle East, the Near East. Specifically the Near East, that was not an issue. What happened in the Near East, in the 90s, late 80s, 90s, the societies in this area, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Iraq, started moving towards being more conservative, Islamically. So the liberal became conservative. The conservative became quite conservative. The quite conservative went all the way to become radical. So the whole society like was pushed to the right in a powerful way. Very powerful way.
Just
Yes.
as an observation, I would say that in Lancashire, the wearing of the burqa has become a lot more common in the last 15
The what?
The wearing of the full
The
cap.
burqa, yeah.
Much more common in the last 15 or 20 years.
In Syria, not even the veil was common. Not even the open veil. The open veil was considered normal for ladies in their 60s and up. It's a kind of sign of maturity, humility, kind of respect for elderly. But between 20 and 40, the veil was about 2-3%. Now is 95%. What I'm going to say is that has here,
Culturally, yeah.
plus here. There are charities in the Middle East, not only Syria. If you were a girl and you decide to wear a veil, you would get money for it. I went to Istanbul, and there was a forum, the International Forum for Jerusalem, and I was invited to the Forum for Jerusalem, and the next door of the forum there was a hall, like 3-4 times this hall, and there were all Muslim charities and Christian charities, secular charities, to do with Jerusalem, anything to do with Jerusalem. So we went there, and we were going from one stall to the other, and I found 4 charities in Palestine raising funds to support women wearing the veil. They give them monthly salary for wearing the veil, and open. I'm not talking about something secret. It's open. They are advertising. They were advertising themselves.
I think here it's from my experiences that lots of women just felt they turning to their faith. I mean, it's better if some of my Muslim friends say it, but from what my Muslim friends said to me was they just felt, as part of a stronger commitment to their faith, that was the reason why they wanted to wear a veil. And
of course,
it's mainly my question is mainly around the culture, because it's quite interesting when you've had a shared culture for a long time and you get 2 different religions, like things like shaking hands are part of the culture, but and you just do it and it's understood. But it's quite interesting when it comes together in 2 different ways, where when the culture is different as well.
I find that quite interesting, with all due respect, but one thing that does concern me slightly is that any exhibition of any type of religious practice being pigeonholed into extremism or moving towards the right is, I think, slightly counterproductive for interfaith dialogue and also how different communities can work together. But on the point of like shaking hands, for example, is it an expression of extremism, or is it an expression of rigidity? Is it an expression of greater adherence to one's faith? These are the questions that we should be actually answering. And I understand in Syria, I think from your cultural memory in the last 40 years, 30 years, there probably has been a move in the Middle East away from pan-Arab nationalism towards pan-Islamism, which has taken place, and which is something that I've witnessed in my own time. But one thing that I've noticed is, I'm a Hanafi, and I follow the Hanafi school of thought, which is the antithesis of some of the extremists who are using funding, the economic factor, to push into Syria and create this big chasm between the traditionalists and the reformists, or what we could say the extremists. One thing that we've noticed is, coming from a Hanafi background, is that Syria has, in Damascus, Aleppo, Halab, has had a history of scholarship within the Hanafi school of thought. One of the greatest authorities within the Hanafi school of thought is an individual called Ibn Abidin al-Shami.
Of course.
Yes, who wrote and authored the Rev'd al-Muhtar, which was written approximately 140, 50, 60 years ago. His descendants still live in Damascus. I hope so. But even his book, and he's the authority in the Hanafi Mazhab, and his book Rev'd al-Muhtar clearly mentions the Islamic ruling with regards to men shaking the hands of women. Now, for me personally, I cringe a little bit, with all due respect, when something that's a religious, it's an exhibition of religion that's been accepted by traditions, thoughts within Islam, not just the the right-wing jihadi militants, and to then say, well, you know, we've seen a growth of this, and to say that this is an indication that the community is moving to the right. I just find it slightly a bit too
I said to the
simplistic.
conservative,
Yeah.
to the conservative side, absolutely, the whole society in Syria moved towards conservatism. That is a fact in the society. And the shaking hand was, I didn't say religion, because I acknowledged it's a culture. It's because in my city, in the Syria, in Aleppo, half of my family is in Aleppo. That was never something to.
We're coming from the west coast of India. If you read some of the anthropological studies done during the British Raj, things like the Bombay Gazetteer, fantastic book which talks about the Muslim communities. And the Muslim communities in Lancashire, especially from India, from the Gujarat area, is predominantly is a community that's mentioned quite intensely in the Bombay Gazetteer, which is an ethnographic study done between the years of 1863 and 1901, and it talks about our community, the community that you're talking about in general, you know, the Gujarati community, and it comes in there that women generally didn't veil. They might have worn a loose chador over their head. They didn't veil. And he also mentions within our community that our women would actively participate with the men folk in the fields, harvesting and farming, etc. But when we see the way we practice religion, my grandmother, she'd go to the well, the village well, carry pots of water on her head and bring it back home. But when you look at the way I live in my house, the way my parents live, the way people generally live that I grew up with, yes, there is a lot more awareness, I could possibly say, about religion. But would I consider myself to be of the angry Muslim man?
No. That has nothing to do with anger. That definitely has nothing to do with anger.
One thing that really hit me when I saw you was, I thought to myself, he's the epitome of an angry Arab man.
No, it has nothing to do with anger. It has to do with interpretation. Yeah. Because the ulama, the scholars, the Muslim scholars, are not in one mind about shaking hands, and are not in one mind when it comes to the interpretation of the hijab. There are schools of how to interpret hijab, or to interpret what women should wear or not wear, or shake hand or not shake hand. There is also oversimplicity to say, well, it's when women wears hijab and stops shake hand, it's religious awareness. It doesn't necessarily have to do with religious awareness. Sometimes it's a cultural thing. If you grow up in such a culture, you take what the culture gives you. If you're growing in a more liberal culture, you adopt what the culture throws at you.
Would you say there's another element towards that, and that's the shaping of the mindset of people in the Middle East due to popular satellite media?
Oh well, I didn't speak about the dimension of globalization, which shook the Middle East, especially in the 90s. In the whole of the Middle East, take Aleppo, the second largest city in Syria. They used to have 2 satellite channels. One, Syria 2, and the rest, there are 3 or 4 channels from Turkey. And the people in Aleppo, they don't speak Turkish. So they switch on when a football game is showing. So 2 Arabic channels. Suddenly, within 5 years, they were hit with 600-700 channels. They switch. The society went mad. Especially men would stay all night long drinking tea and just flipping channels. I mean, I know from my friends who are priests and imams, they met to discuss such a phenomenon, how to deal with the problems that satellite dishes brought to the society.
And Syrian soap operas, which are very widely
exactly. And then we were hit by another wave of globalization, which was the internet. When Bashar al-Assad decided suddenly that he will open the internet in Syria. And the internet cafes in Syria, there was a time when internet cafes opened 24 hours and they were packed for 24 hours. Please.
Sorry, we're just going to have to
No, it's fine.
wrap up. If we can, just for a 15-minute break and then we're all back together. But it's incredible, isn't it, that simple things like shaking hands, an incredibly profound human thing, has generated what?
Well, that's why I brought it up, because
It's
it's a
just-
simple thing, but it has been,
Yeah.
it's such a powerful discussion because I was always, my first instance was being an interfaith practitioner. I said immediately, yes, of course, because you respect all religions, that's the religious practice, and you just do this. But it was only after this meeting where I thought, well, actually, for the first time, I actually go back to my European roots and actually think about this, and I realized that those Muslim friends of mine that have that practice, they actually need to put a lot of effort to explain themselves. It's like if I've got a cold and I haven't washed my hands, I need to say, I'm really sorry, I'm not shaking your hand, but I've got a cold, I don't want to give you disease. In the same way, actually within that culture that we are here, you have to do that level of explanation, and some do. Some will do a bow, so there will be a clear expression of welcome to replace the handshake. But if you don't, and this is what this gentleman didn't do, we just knocked the door, the girl is standing like this, and he just says, can't shake your hand. And just, so you have to do something to take into account the culture.
You know that also some Jewish people,
Oh, yes, of course,
men,
true.
do not shake hands.
For the same reasons.
For the same reasons. Yeah.
Is this move to conservatism something to do with protectionism? They're fearful that their faith will be diluted, undermined, and this is what...
In Syria, that is a very major element. Very major element. Then when the whole society was bombarded with internet and satellite channels and all kinds of ways, that the society looked and studied that and understood it as an invasion.
Yeah.
It's a cultural, intellectual invasion. So, as a reaction to that, I want to protect myself.
Yeah.
It's a kind of reaction against all what is hitting us from outside, even on the economical side. Suddenly, the high street in Paris, London, New York, or Beirut were the same. The same names, the same shops, the same. So globalization has a lot to answer for. On one hand, it opened the world and became a small village, in a sense, symbolically, that we are accessing everything so easily and travel so easily. But globalization also caused or posed as a threat to a lot of local communities, especially when you go east. So Syria, we did not have a time when computers were as big as a room. Suddenly, we had personal computers, and suddenly, after a very short time, we had laptops and iPads and iPhones. So, is the society ready for that? No, it's not ready. And because of that, religiously speaking, even in the Christian side, Christians went out of balance. Not only Muslims, the whole society went out of balance.
This is why I think...
We have to...
There's another question.
All right.
Just to say, Edison, thank you ever so much, because you've outlined principles and helped my understanding far more than anybody else's in the past. Is there anywhere we can have a look at this? You know, you've outlined it. We'll go back over and we're full of it, but we can't remember everything. Is there anything in writing that we can...
I haven't written anything, but...
No, the thing is that these are fundamental principles that are so key and important to responding to the changes you've just mentioned. Because as interfaith people, we can help people.
Yeah. We have a course in the Awareness Foundation, which is called Living in a Global Village. And it is done for churches, but in every session of the course, it's five sessions, we have a Muslim voice and a Jewish voice to tell us how Islam and how Judaism think of globalization. And it's a 5-session course, which any church can get from the Awareness Foundation free.
What you've outlined for Saturday has been a eureka moment. You know?
Eureka moment.
Well, it's actually, you know,
Thank you very
it's
much.
opened a window that is up to now being closed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we come back when?
1:15.
Go! Go!
I think it's still good. It's a sort of discussion.
I'm a bit. I'm not too. What's the word? I think this is
Maybe less into dancing.
But they would understand the analogy. Yes, definitely. They would. We're not talking about having sex, we're talking about just dancing.
That's right. So do you think that's a helpful picture?
Yeah, it's very helpful because a very senior lady. She used to be one of the most powerful ladies in Asia. Was on the trustees of the Awareness Foundation. She was a dear friend. She lives in Thailand. She said to me once that Nadim, when I first became the director of the Awareness Foundation, I was very young and unexperienced 10 years ago. And she said, you are dancing, but you are stepping over the toes of the people around you. Thank you very much. Yes, of course. So she made me aware of the image in terms of dialogue, in terms of communication. Thank you. And how to move without annoying the others, but at the same time, because you know your way.
Yeah. It's a good insight.
So do you live in London?
Yes, I do.
And where do you minister?
I minister in London. The Awareness Foundation is in London,
Yeah.
and my church is in Greenwich.
What denomination?
Anglican.
Yeah.
I was ordained URC.
Oh, where are you? Why are you out?
Yes, I was ordained a URC minister.
What was this in you?
I was the senior chaplain to the universities in London for 6 years as a URC minister, and then I became Anglican. Thank you.
Well, I mean, you said at the end this morning, you summed everything up. Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'd love to get my mind around that more, because it's fundamental to any work, and with integration, understanding this, and this, as you said, the world's changing so
Oh,
fast.
very, very, very fast.
So we need
Very
to
fast.
know strategies in order
To cope with the changes.
Yeah.
Now it's what? What son?
It was, what was it, East is East or something, one of those shops that had things from India. I was going to Egypt and then everything to be Jordan and it was like one of those sales that was 90% off.
It's fabulous.
I know, everybody looks like a kid.
Yeah, so this is yeah. So because it's I think we get a match. You I can say 5% passport bus to get me to train. Well, that takes it on. 6 minutes on the train, then 5 minutes on the train.